This is really weird. I hope this works out later. The delay is really strange. Okay, let's see how that works out later. So Google gives me an orange sign that the live stream might not be the best quality. I don't know what's that about. Is it the bit rate or is it the resolution? I have no idea. How's the sound? A little low. Okay, that's good. Sound is not so good. That's not so good. Okay, wait, let me turn that up. Actually even use a better mic and I could hope it would sound good with it. Technology. So if you see me switching all the time, there's a part of the screen to the right side which you can't see. Is the sound getting better now? Is that louder? Doesn't seem so. Great, give it a try, make it a bit louder. Microphone. So it should get louder now. I hope it works. Dim dim. Check, check, check. Bit louder, even more. Maybe I need to get closer to the mic. Ambient noise. Yeah, I can't really do anything about that. My MacBook Air is fanning like crazy. That's why I thought I get another microphone, which is a bit further away from the laptop, but it doesn't seem to... Oh well, much better now. Okay, that's good. Can turn it up even a bit more. Let's just see how that works. Good sound now. That's good. Awesome. Then I can switch all this off. Crazy. Yeah, YouTube Live seems quite nice actually. I mean, especially with the OBS connection. The setup was really easy, and the cool thing about OBS, I never used it before, is I can show you, I can move it here, get Inception mode. And the cool thing about it is I can switch between placeholder and my screen, and I also have, like what I started saying about first, is that I have a area on my screen on the right which I don't use, which is quite handy because I can move OBS there, and I also have the chat open there, and that seems nice. It's cool so far. Still need to get used to it a bit more, and I hope it will store all the settings for me. I haven't seen how I can save the profile yet, so I hope next time I start streaming, not screaming, it will not forget everything and I have to start from scratch and set up everything again. Someone, I think Niels or someone else, sent me an article about a woman who got started live streaming, and she was live streaming video games, game development I think, and she wrote an article about it. That was pretty interesting. I have to dig up the article about it. That was nice. So some good tips in there. Let's see how I can get the chat in a new window, because that's still a bit weird on the right. You won't see that, but I need to have this a bit better. Wow. So yeah, that's much nicer. But it's really weird because there's like a 10-second delay or even more. So when I'm saying something, you will only hear it like 10 seconds later. So if the live chat is not, if I'm not replying immediately, then it's all about this delay. It's also weird because if you open the YouTube video or the live streaming video in a second window, you get to hear yourself, but like from the past. That's super confusing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much good to go. I won't stop now and restart, because then we will get a new URL, and that's kind of weird again. So I will just stay around here, talk a bit to myself, just keep on chatting if you want, keep on hanging around. Maybe I should, should I do? Should I put it to the placeholder back? But you have seen the interface anyway, so not much secrets left. Here's the secret placeholder. Yeah, the delay is pretty big. Almost like 20 seconds or even more. I wonder if I can reduce that somehow, but I have no idea. I mean, OBS is quite nice to get started with, but it has so many options. Pretty scary. Has anyone of you ever streamed some live coding or some gaming or game development? Never did it before. I know that Niels did it. I think Niels did it a couple times. He's pretty much into gaming and game development, so I think the game industry is much more about live streaming. No response. If anyone is still listening, I think I will keep that pretty short. We'll just click through our pattern lab, show you a couple components, tell you a bit about the details. If you want to know something special about it, just put it into the chat and I can reply to it as soon as possible. I don't want to make it too long for the first session because I have absolutely no experience with it, so I can totally screw this up. Yes. I wonder, did it record the previous videos, by the way? Can someone let me know? Someone said on Thomas said on Slack that there is a video from the 108 video. I have no idea what that one is. So if you go to the old URL, is there still the old video? Because otherwise I maybe should record this one. But if YouTube keeps them anyway, I don't have to record it. I think the YouTube chat is more convenient because then everybody can read along here and it's more related to the video. I think YouTube stores the chat with the video, but I'm not entirely sure. But if it does, I think I would prefer to have the Slack to have the video chat instead of Slack. It will probably also be a bit off topic if it turns up in Slack. Awesome. Okay, so I don't have to record them as it seems. I should have known that because I wasn't aware of it, so I've even no idea what the old video was. I hope it's not too weird. I was just moving around with Windows basically and speaking some bullshit, or don't speaking anything at all, so yeah, I hope that's fine. And I installed Muzzle app just a couple minutes ago. That is so awesome. I had so much fun. I don't know if you saw it. Nico recommended it, and then I saw that Smashing Magazine mentioned it today on Twitter, and I got to the website and I just had such a good laugh, because it's really funny. If you have this open like further to the right, you can almost mix those ones up with your own notifications. It's quite funny at the first sight. And I mean, I just spent like 5 minutes here reading through the notifications. It's hilarious. So what Muzzle does is it automatically mutes all your notifications as soon as you start live streaming. I hope it works now, actually. I can't really see if it does. So the good thing is my notifications are so far to the right that you won't see them even if they pop up. But I hope it does what it tells me that it does. Because yeah, there can be some quite embarrassing moments. I just let it run here because it's so funny. It's probably more interesting than... Oh no, the placeholder. I forgot to switch the placeholder. Oh my god. So here's the browser. This is the Muzzle website. You probably think, what is he talking about? Yeah, it's muzzleapp.com, and it's really funny. It's a free app, so you don't pay for it. It's really cool. And yeah, just read through the notifications on the right. They are not really safe for work, or yeah, you will see for yourself. I love this. I mean, especially when you think about selling a digital product, it's always very interesting to think about how to present it in the best possible way. And I mean, there's kind of a problem right now that every product website for a digital product, like software or service or whatever, they all look the same, right? So I think there's even a meme about it where you have the big header, the heading image, and then like some features and the typical structure of a product website. So I think this is a really good example of how to be more creative with it. I love it. So 5 more minutes left. Woohoo! I just keep on talking. Drink some water. How do you like the Slack and the journal so far? Do you think it's interesting what we put there, or anything we could do better, be more interesting, focus more on a different topic? Because I mean, we are totally making this up along the way, so any kind of feedback is really welcome, just to be able to adjust our direction a bit. Just going to post the video link one more time in the general channel, even though everybody should probably be subscribed to both. Okay, journal is great, bit by bit, not overwhelming. That's perfect. Okay, that's exactly how I hoped it would be. Yeah, we have to also get like the dosage right, because we can't just put anything out there in week 1 and then stop it. So that's kind of a challenge. 2 more minutes to go. I'm going to switch back to the placeholder. Woohoo! The Google emojis are so weird. Yeah, Blank just mentioned that probably a lot of people are just sitting at work right now and can't watch, but that's a general problem, right? I mean, with time zones and yeah, so I will just figure this out when the best time will be. So I'm just getting started, I think, because it's 4 o'clock. Very first session, live streaming session. I'm super excited about it. For those who just joined, we had a little setup session before, so it doesn't feel that frightening at all anymore, but it's still like, yeah, I still have to figure this out, but it seems cool. So YouTube seems to work nice so far. OBS, which is the software, Open Broadcaster or something like that, works pretty fine so far. If you have anything that doesn't work good for you, just let me know. We can always tweak that and improve it session by session. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the parts of the interface that we are working on and the way we work on that. So it's all about the panel in this session. It's all about our design, our current state of the design, and also about our components that we are building. You might have seen, I've written about it, that we are building everything in Vue.js. I wrote quite a lengthy article about this decision, so I won't go in further detail here. And it has been so much fun. I mean, this has started, I think, 2 or 3 months ago, and a lot of this, what you can see here, is still very much work in progress. We are prototyping while building this, so this has always been my personal approach, and it seems to work out really nice at the moment also with more people. So we are building things, trying stuff out, then the design changes, we refactor a couple parts here and there, and then we move on, and it's just a very fluent process. Everything is built in the browser, so I never really use Photoshop for design work anymore, like a couple years now. And especially with Vue, this is really working great because you can work on tiny bits of pieces, something like the headline here, and build a component out of that, move to the next one, and then just play puzzle. And that's the great part about Vue in general. It feels much more like puzzle than anything else so far. So what you can see here is a prototype of our users view. I wanted to get started with those more, the bigger views, and then go into the details about more of those components. So this is probably like the way that the user view is going to end up. You have the typical drop downs here. It's all a bit more free now. We haven't figured out how the menu is going to be like, if it's going to be the big bar at the top again, or if we're going to have a sidebar like on Slack. That's all still work in progress. But what you can see as a general direction is that we are trying to keep it similar to the old panel, but still take a new direction in some places. So a slightly different typography, bit more open, a bit cleaner, but very similar. We wanted to make users feel at home immediately and still give them something that makes clear that this is a new direction. This is the user view, as I said. We worked on detailed user forms as well, but not too much. And we also have, so this is the view, another view for how pages could be structured. I will get started with those first to give you an idea of how the interface looks and feels in general. So by the way, this is the interface, right? I should have started that the entire thing, which you can see here with the blue bar at the top, this one here, that is our pattern library. It's called Fractal. It's from a UK agency called Clear Left, and it's really, really awesome. It helped us tons to get faster with our development process. So what you can see, or what you will see later, is that we are able to have many different components here and have some kind of playground for them. So what you get for each component, basically this entire view is also a component now, is that you get the HTML for it, you get some context, we haven't defined it yet, you get additional assets here, you can store information about or you can read information about the components, and you can also store notes. We haven't made use of that so far. We mostly use it just for the HTML part, sticking stuff together, and then it gives you this nice thing where you can play with the responsiveness of your components. You can also open it in a single view, so you get the full idea of how it will look like. It's just really, really nice. So, and this entire thing is really, you have to think about it like a huge Lego toolbox. So we are building our own little Lego bricks, which you can then later use to work with it. Just clicking through a couple of those, giving you a better idea how they look, what they do. Starting with something simple as a button. So we have a button component, for example. Looks not that spectacular at the first sight. This is the HTML for it. This is the cool part about Vue. We build our own HTML tags for it, and the HTML tags then do exactly what we want them to do. So they look like they should be looking. They behave like they should be looking. We can define the attributes that you can give them and what they do with the component. So in this case, for example, we can manipulate the colors, or this we call it state in this case. We say, okay, I need a positive button that confirms something or saves something. Then I can just say, okay, state positive, and that will do it for me. Or I can say I want to have a negative button that makes clear, okay, if you click that, something dangerous is going to happen. It gets a bit clearer why this is cool when you have a look at more complex components. When it gets more complex, where you say, okay, I also want to have an icon with this button, so I can define the icon here. Icon is referring to the font awesome thing, and the icon then again is within the button is using our icon component. So this is another one, which and you can just build them and nest them and just build your own little set of UI components and stack them together. So we have buttons, we have icons, we have things like the button group that I showed before, where the button group is taking care of the padding and the margin between the buttons, so this will always stay consistent. We have things like the tag and the removable tag. As soon as you add removable to it, it will automatically give you the cross, and when you click it, you will get a special event for it, so you can react on that event. And so we have all sorts of those. We have dialogues where it gets then much more complex, where you can say, okay, I want a dialogue. And so this is the entire code for this example, where you see, okay, we are now reusing the button component to open the dialogue, and the dialogue is just this. And if you click it, a dialogue will open, and you can see that we set up some of the stuff here. So we defined which state this button is in. It's in the negative state, which how the label for this button will be, what the icon will be, what the content of the dialogue will be. So the cool thing about Vue is you have a lot of control over how you use those components. On the one side, by the attributes that you are seeing, like the headline, the button, we can define all this and say, okay, if you use this in that way, it will always give you a nice dialogue. And then you also have those in Vue, it's called slots, where you can say, okay, what you put between those tags, in this case the text, will then appear at a special part of your component. And you can control how many slots you want to have, so you can work with multiple slots and let content appear in multiple ways. I think I can show you this a bit later. So this is the dialogue, and the dialogue has events. I'm not going into the details here, but you can react on when you cancel the dialogue or when you submit the dialogue. You can then use it in your own plugin, for example, and react on those events and do something. And for example, in this case, you would probably delete a user or something like that. This is an example of the slots that I mentioned. So this is a dialogue where we want to have a bit more control over how the header looks like. So what you can do, the indentation is a bit broken, but you can see it. This is coming from Fractal. But what you can see is it looks the same, but we define the instead of putting the headline attribute here, we can also say, okay, I want to have a custom headline here, and then I can put that into the slot called header. Those are defined as well, so you have even more detailed control over those components. Another example how this looks if it gets much more complex is where you can make use of all those slots, control how the buttons look, control how the headline looks, control how additional options look here. The result is the same in this case, but it can be quite detailed actually. So what we also did is we have icons, we have images, I said that before. We have all sorts of navigation components. So for example, we have a simple breadcrumb which you can use like this. Very simple. The good thing again, you don't have to care about anything, any kind of styling, what those separators will be like, if the last item will be bold or not. It's just, you just use this and it's super consistent afterwards. We have drop downs defined, which are also very easy to use. You, if you have a bit of Vue background, if you have a Vue background, you can see it's totally obvious, but if not, it's still, I think, really readable. So you can see, okay, we defined the drop down. There's a parent element for that. Within that comes the button that opens the drop down. That can be a button, that can be some kind of other thing. Most likely it will be a button. And that button has a click event. So whenever there's a @ sign in front of the thing, then it's an event. And that click event then searches through those refs. In this case, it takes the drop-down ref and then calls a method of the drop-down ref. And one method of that drop-down ref is a toggle method. There's open, close, toggle. That's pretty much it. So it means, okay, whenever you click on that, it will open it or it will close it depending on the current state. And then the drop-down is defined here with the drop-down content and with some drop-down items. Those drop-down items can have additional icons, very easy. It can even have images, pretty simple as well. Design is not right here. That's a bit too tight, but we are working on that. We have a dark version where you just say, okay, I want to have this in dark, so I set dark to true, and then you get a dark drop down, with icons. And what you can see here as well is how awesome Fractal is, because for us we just define those different examples here, and this is how the example looks. So in a matter of seconds we can just add new examples here and have a really powerful playground to test all those examples. Test if the styling is right, test if the events work, etc, etc. Same thing with images. This is how it works. Then we have some very simple stuff like the language selector. And here it gets really cool, because this seems like kind of weird why you just want to have a language selector component. But the coolest part about view components is that we have the chance to also control how data is being pulled into those components. So for example, pulling languages, the available languages for a site from an API or from some kind of configuration is kind of a complicated task. Well, it's half complicated, but by just calling this component in the background, we can make sure that the translations are always pulled in correctly from an API, and we can control how it looks like. So you really just need this, and then it will open and close and give you the option to change the language. Really easy. Another example, pagination, a typical use case which is very annoying to build, because you have a lot of edge cases. What happens when you reach the last page? What happens if you reach the first page? If there are not enough items in the list that it makes sense to show it at all. Our pagination component looks pretty simple, but it's quite powerful. So you can click through it. Errors are automatically deactivated. The counter is being updated, and we have this little friend here which helps us skip through pages more quickly or enter any kind of page. And behind the scenes, you will get automatically validated if everything is correct. So it's quite powerful, and you can just drop this into any kind of thing that you build, any kind of list that needs pagination, and it will again have events that you can use to react on when it's been paginated. So and then update the list, for example. Then the page selector, which I built yesterday, I can show you that live now. So a typical part of the UI that has been missing in Kirby 2, where it was super difficult to select pages for links, for example, or to build relationships. In this case, it's quite nice because you get this with just this little piece of code here. You define what kind of element will open it. So this is what you just put it in between the tags. This can be a button again, this can be an input field, totally up to you. And then you can select the page, and on select you will have a select method which is being called, and then you can do anything in that select method. What I'm doing here is I'm calling a function or I'm defining a callback function, and that callback function is just updating this console ref, which I call it's just a span, and then it's modifying the inner HTML. So, and you can navigate through the pages. It's quite nice because it means that the tree can get rather extensive and you still have the option to navigate through it in a kind of a fashion of those mobile menus where you just get deeper and deeper, but you can also always move up again. And that's our navigation items. What we have as well are simple layout things. So we have a box that doesn't do much. It's just for empty states, for example, if you want to upload something. We have cards. They look super weird if they are too big, but if they're getting smaller, they look nice. This is the card option. You can define an image. You can define the main text and the subtext. There is also an option attribute which you can use to show a drop down. I will show you that later. And you can have one card or you can have multiple cards. So for example, if you put more of those next to each other and group them in a cards tag, it will automatically create a grid. We are using CSS grid for this so far, and we are going to provide a fallback for with Flexbox as well. But the grid is just so awesome because we don't have any kind of media queries behind that. It's just, yeah, it's really just the CSS grid magic that is happening here. And again, as you can see, I mean, this is really beautiful in my opinion because it's really simple to write this. And on the other side, there's quite a lot of stuff happening. So we have the CSS rules for it. We have all those cards. Those cards can have options. We have the images. They are lazy loaded. All this kind of technology is happening for you with just those little tags here. We have a grid in general, so you can have basically a normal grid system, but with a bit fancier HTML text again, where you can say, okay, this is very similar to what we do in blueprints in Kirby 2 with the width settings. So instead of having like weird CSS classes for that, you just define the width in this very human readable way. And then the grid will do the rest for you. You can define which kind of gutter you want, if it should be large or small or medium. And the margins will always be what they should be. The header is not really exciting. It's not updated as well. We have tables, very similar to, that is something that you saw before in the user list, where you can have like multiple columns, and the columns have additional options to say which kind of data they hold, how wide they are, if they should auto adjust to the content. You can have options tables with icons. It's all just here. You can see how much it is being Lego, where we have those table cells, and within the table cell we have our image tag, or we have a button here, and then the button could be a drop down again, so you would have a drop down here. Very simple. And then this is not exciting. What is exciting? The forms are. I think I'm hurrying up now a bit because it's like almost already 20 minutes. If someone is even listening anymore. Another cool thing that I want to show you is that we have those predefined lists. And those lists are pretty cool as well, because you can just say, okay, I want to have a list of pages, and this should be displayed like this in a table, or it should be displayed like this as cards. And so those cards have the typical page options that you know from Kirby 2, and they will automatically get the right dialogues without further ado, so you can just rely on all those options being available to you. And it will be even simpler than that one, so you can manually feed in data for the pages, or what will also be possible later at a point is that you define which kind of pages you want in a very logical way, where you say, okay, what is the parent page, what kind of sub pages do I want to fetch, and then Kirby will automatically do the API calls for you in the background and will return the list according to the kind of specifications that you wrote for it. Same for users, so you can have like users by role. As you can see here, this goes a bit further into detail with where pagination is already enabled. The same will happen for the pages and the files. You don't even have to worry about the pagination anymore, it will just be there. A couple things about forms. Let me close this. So, oh yeah, I want to show this because this is really cool. I gave a teaser yesterday, and so I think it's important to show this. You know that Timo has been building this awesome page builder plugin for Kirby for quite a while, and it's really, really cool, and I think it should be part of the core. I wasn't able to work together with him on that by porting it to Kirby 2, which is a shame. And I think in this case, what we're able to do is to completely rethink it, because Vue gives us so much more options in this case. And what this does is it's really like a free form of like a WYSIWYG block editor kind of mixture. It's really nice. So you can add all sorts of things here. Enter and then just add some text and then enter again. There are still some options missing, so you in a later stage you will also be able to turn different blocks into something else. So for example, this text block could be turned into a quote, for example, or you will also be able to arrange those blocks so you can move them around. You can upload an image here. That's not working so far, but it will be working. You can change the caption here. You can have lists. And the cool thing is this this will be stored as YAML, so it's very structured, and you can define your own blocks. So if you are into Vue, it will be quite simple to create your own blocks, adjust them to client projects, have special kind of whatever, a product block, for example, or a special gallery block. It's all possible. So this is the blocks editor, and I think it's quite nice, and that is going to be a form field, so you can just drop it into your forms and use it there instead of a text area. Then let me show a couple fields which are nice. So they don't look that much different from Kirby 2 so far, and I'm not sure if they ever will look that much different. I think a couple of those fields are pretty okay already, but with Vue, the code for those is so much more readable. It's so much easier. This is the table view, which is kind of coming from the structure fields. We are still experimenting around with them. Just to give you an idea, I know you don't want to have those modals again. We are thinking about how we can improve them, because what we are thinking in terms of this table is that we want to have different columns than form fields. So it should be possible to have like 3 columns but more form fields. And so in this case you really need a modal, but then we thought about how can we improve that, and then we thought about, okay, let's do pagination through those modals, so you can go through the entire data set even without leaving the modal. Still experimental, still not totally defined. A lot of time has been spent on reworking stuff that has already been there. So the text input is now a Vue component that will be also available, as well as most of the other components, so you will be able to pull them into your own projects, redesign them, make them less Kirby, and then yeah, just have a nice text field input or something like that, or a date field or something like that. This is how it looks. Then we have a couple examples how those will look together if you combine them pretty much like they did before, with the grid, with the, I think, yeah, you just define a field set like that, which is also nice because those field sets are now much more available. You can also reuse them in your own plugins without having to rely on some weird form class. It's all just there. You can pass some JSON to it and it will build the form for you. This is a user profile, a bit more extensive. We can see with lots of icons. It stays quite similar to Kirby 2 in this terms. One cool thing about images, so we have our special image tag that I showed before, but I think it's quite useful because, as I said, it will be doing lazy loading, not implemented yet, but it will be doing that. It has different modes, so you can say, okay, take that and make it a cover, contain it. It has different size ratios. And you also have different options to say, okay, this has a checkboard pattern background, this has a black background, this has a transparent background. It's all there. Yeah, and then one last thing, as I said before, or what I showed before, it will be combined into those views, and those views are I think they are going to be pretty nice. I'm going to go into more detail about the options that you have here, but as far as I can say that what we are focusing on, especially for pages, is that you have much more control over what kind of elements you want to show on such a page. This would be an example of a typical blog. It's a bit mixed up here with the headline, but I think you get it, where you can say, okay, I want to have a drafts list, I want to have a public projects list or public articles list. You could combine that with a form, you could combine that with those card layouts. I'm just giving you a quick look at how that looked before in our previous prototype, because then you will probably be able to understand it a bit better. So the general idea is that the blueprints will not only give you the option to define fields and you have a plain form and the sidebar bar on the left, but that every view for every page type can be different. So for example, you go to projects, the best way to present those projects is by a nice card list. That would be the best way to present that. For the project itself, you can say, I want to have 3 columns. I want to have a major column in the center. I want to have a column on the left where I can define a cover and a project gallery. And I want to have some additional downloads on the right. All of this is optional. You can set this up, you can set this up, you can set this up, and you can set this up. And this can be done for every page type. Couple examples. So for a blog, what I showed before, drafts list, published list, you give it 2 columns. You say, okay, I want to have this on the left, the drafts on the left side, the published ones on the right side. Could be totally the other way around. Doesn't really matter. For an about page, you could totally combine it and say, I have the team on the right side and some additional info on the left side. You can even do stuff like saying, I'm going to pull in data from different pages. So for example, what we define as a typical complicated use case for our editors is that you have the homepage, for example, and the homepage is often getting data from subpages. So in this case, you have some homepage specific data, but the rest of it is coming from the projects. And just selecting the latest projects and you display those projects on the homepage. Typical would be blog articles, the latest blog articles, or the team, or some voices, or whatever. And so for editors, we often ran in this situation where they said, yeah, I want to edit the homepage, and then they go to the homepage form and they don't find the latest projects there, and then they get lost because they think that they can edit all this stuff on the homepage. So with the flexibility that we have for the blueprints, it's super easy to say, okay, let's give me the form fields for the homepage on the left side, but then again, or additionally to that, also pull in some projects from the projects list, for example, and make it those ones you will be able to define filters. So you can say, give me the latest tree, give me the visible ones, give me the invisible ones, all this kind of stuff. You could combine this with additional stuff here, blog articles, display those blog articles as a table or display those blog articles as cards. Doesn't really matter. It's all up to you. So the entire approach for Kirby 3 in this case, or the panel design for Kirby 3, really was taking everything away that we had and then thinking about how can we make it entirely content focused. What would be the best interface for users to edit their content? And that should always be like the major reason how things be combined together. And I think with that way, we have a lot of flexibility and power here. And the good thing is, as soon as we started implementing it, it turned out that all those pages are now much more simpler. So a lot of distracting, weird kind of elements are completely vanishing because you're focusing on those elements that you really need. And it's even the entire starting point here. So this would be like the entry point for pages, is completely definable. So it all uses the same system. It's just one blueprint structure, and you can completely say what you want here. So this homepage column, you can put the homepage here. You can have additional columns or put columns down here. It's totally up to you. Display them in cards or whatever, all up to you. So yeah, this is where we're currently at. This is pretty much the entire thing. Maybe one more interesting part about it is all this will be connected to a GraphQL API. So there's going to be some very exciting possibilities around that as well. I'm going to go into more detail there as soon as we have something that I can show you. But in general, this is it. Wow, 34 minutes. I didn't expect that, but I started talking quite a lot. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that first session. I hope it gave a good glimpse of what we built so far. There's still a lot of things to do, but we are very excited about it. I think it's a big step forward for Kirby, and I hope you like it as well. And now I'm just going to finish that here and hope you have some feedback for me. I see some feedback in the chat. That's really cool. Thank you for listening. Let me know how you liked it. Should it be shorter, longer, less techy, more techy? The next one will follow, I guess, in a week or so. So yeah, thank you very much and goodbye.